Why is my battery running low? Hold on, let me just check something.
Sure.
What about now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was my damn firewall that closed my microphone. We should be good to go. Yeah. I just figured out a computer problem that has been going on for weeks that I couldn't figure out. I kept getting messages every time I restart my computer that my BIOS, I get BIOS messages that I was using the wrong AC adapter.
Oh,
And now
really?
I've plugged in, and it's an Alienware, like a production laptop for live events. And I just realized when it said battery low that the power supply, I guess my cat pulled the power supply half out. So it was kind of charging. So, well, problem solved. That works now.
That was easy. Hey, peoples. On past episodes, we've talked about all sorts of stuff. We've covered live shows, festivals, corporate events, television, theater, you name it. But this time, we're talking about a different kind of show. And to tell you the truth, I'm really stepping out of my comfort zone here. And we're back in Montreal to talk with an old friend, Manny Eleftheriou, also known as Crazy F'n Manny. He's the owner and one of the founding members of IWS, that's International Wrestling Syndicate. Manny is not only a wrestling pro, but also the producer and main tech guy behind IWS events, and that's ever since its foundation in 1998. Jeez, that was last century. Man, are we getting old. So, once again, if you like the Backstage Cowboys podcast, please tell all your friends about it and share it on social media. If you don't like the podcast, I don't want to hear about it. The Backstage Cowboys podcast is brought to you by AVL Media Group and Avolites, who make the best lighting consoles in the world. If you live in Canada, you now have access to the Avolites Academy online learning platform. The cost is $229, and that includes an editor Avo key delivered directly to your door. Head on over to BackstageCowboys.com and click on the Avolites Academy logo to get all the details. Now, if you don't live in Canada, well, that means you're in another country. So if you're in the United States, head on over to avolites.us. Anywhere else in the world, just go directly to avolites.com and you'll find all the resources available in your country. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is another episode of the Backstage Cowboys podcast. Dude, let's have the tune. Man, first of all, I want to say I'm so glad that I have this excuse to talk to you.
Yeah.
Because
It's been a while.
yeah, it's been a while, and at the same time, I gave me the occasion to look you up, and go back through everything you've done. Like I'm a bit out of my comfort zone here. I mean, you're in the wrestling world, and I'm obviously in the technical world. And we crossed paths at some point because you were looking for a solution to light up a wrestling ring.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, well, I mean, the technical, like what we do, we're in the wrestling world, but I mean, I run the company, so the technical part is a huge part. So the technical part is a huge part of my life now. Because, I get in the ring and I wrestle sometimes, but I'm responsible for the entire show. And if you don't know what you're doing as the promoter and producer of a show, and you got to rely on techs for everything, like you don't know how to do stuff yourself, it gets pretty expensive, and it's impossible to earn a living with this. So, yeah, that's why we cross paths. And it's kind of like we both kind of have the same job. Like you're like a master at it, and I know like how to turn them on. Like you can operate a Midas, not a Midas, excuse me. You can operate a Grand MA2. You can program a Grand MA2. I can operate it once it's programmed. So that's the skill level, the difference in the skill levels.
Well, that was my skill level at one time. But hey, so why don't you tell me a bit about what you're doing now? I mean, all this. I mean, you have a hell of a history in wrestling. I looked it up. You're on Wikipedia. So, so
Yeah,
tell me,
we
tell me about yourself. What is it exactly that you do?
okay. So about 23 years ago, I was watching wrestling with a bunch of friends. We were watching the WWE pay-per-view, and back then it was the WWF. And I made a bet with my friends that I could be a pro wrestler in a year, and they were like, "That's never going to happen. That's impossible." We were just a bunch of guys that were drunk, making jokes, and they remembered and they pushed me to do it. So I did it. Within a year, I was a wrestler. But the big issue was that in Quebec, pro wrestling was very, like it was very church basement. Like pro wrestling events would be held in church basements, in community centers, stuff like that. There was no lighting, there was no entrances. It was very, uh, I wouldn't say trashy, but it was very like low budget. And I had always been a fan of the tech world. I worked on a lot of events when I was younger, uh, and I was a big fan of concerts. So I was like, well, we want to do something better. So I tried to get trained by all the local feds in Montreal. They refused to train me because they didn't like the fact that I was English. That was the main thing because it was all a very Quebecois thing, and they refused to do it. So we decided to start our own company, and we built a makeshift ring in this bar for the first couple of shows. And I remember we were the first independent wrestling company to have our show while our show was happening. It was also playing on the TVs in the bar, and it was all done with RCA cables and splitters, like long RCA. Like that was, we're talking 1999. So and now, 23 years later, you know, we have three television shows. We own our own production, full TV multicam production suite, full audio suite. We can, I can film a TV show. I can walk into the other room and start filming a TV show, a multicam TV show. We have our shows at MTELUS in Montreal. We use LED video walls now. We use, the top lighting and everything like that. And especially with COVID, being able, because we own so much of our own gear, being able to run right away as soon as we got permission. We did, when they let shows start back up in September, we did 4 shows in a row at MTELUS in 11 weeks, and we sold out all 4. The only person that beat us was Charlotte Cardin, who sold out 13 of them. But that's over a year, and we're over 11 weeks. So, we become a big company, and like I said Midas before, because I sold our X32 because it was too big, and it was for our because we use it to mic the crowd and our TV audio. It was too big, and I bought a Midas M32R today, the live version, the smaller, more compact one. So it's like, I have every band or every cameraman's dream kit at our disposal. And it all started with a makeshift ring on gym mats in Wally's Pub in downtown Montreal.
And make it to what you are you doing this for full time now?
I was doing it full time because we also own our own gym with a pro wrestling school in it, and I was doing it full time. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, profitable businesses turned into giant debts. So I started working. I started working in a bar. I was working as security in a bar. Then they closed the bars. So I'm actually working in the warehouse of our main sponsor, Prohibition, like the entire chain. I'm working in their warehouse, helping them out full time, just because I need money to pay bills, to pay for insurance and our gym rent and this and that. So I'm doing that. But when shows start back up again, I figure after 6 months we'll be able to clear the debts that have accumulated over the pandemic, and I can go back to just doing this full time. So it was weird at the beginning of the pandemic when I thought it was going to be 2 or 3 months. That's it. And then everything was going back to normal. I took all our savings and I went and I bought gear because, all the touring companies stopped touring. Everything went for sale. So I bought Sony FS7 cameras. I bought lighting. I bought everything I was renting. Then, 9, 12, 15, 18 months later, we're going on 2 years now. I was kind of like, well, yeah, I bought all this gear and, we got to use it for 4 shows. And So, but I mean, you're in the same business. So hopefully this is done. Hopefully this is ending soon.
Well, I trust it is. I mean, at some point, the way I see it, within a month, everybody's going to have caught COVID.
Yeah, that's it.
So
And
maybe that's the solution.
I think Pfizer announcing that they're releasing the COVID pill in Canada, kind of, it's kind of like the morning after pill type thing. I think that's going to be the game changer. No matter what you believe, about this whole pandemic and everything like that, I think that's going to be the game changer where they say, okay, we don't have to push vaccines on people. We don't have to this. We don't have to that. We can finally open up. And if someone gets sick, they can get this, So it's a shame because, show business, especially in Montreal, like a lot of people took some serious, serious beatings, and the club scene, the club scene, the venue scene, imagine the rent they're paying for club soda around Telus. It's not a, it's a big, big beating that a lot of people took. And, we just want to get back to normal and start putting on events again, and, so many techs have changed lines of work because, after 2 years, what are you going to do?
Well, that's a big problem. That's a big problem, and we have to work hard on training because a lot of experienced techs have permanently moved on to something else now. And the thing is, we've never had a life, and all of a sudden, you get this regular job where you have your evenings, you have your weekends, you can see your family and all that, and you get to live. And some people just say, well, this is it. I mean, I'm done with touring. I'm done with, working nights, weekends, loading trucks at 4 a.m.
Yeah, it's when you're used to a certain lifestyle and you have such a drastic change, some people hate it. Some people say, well, this is it. This is better. There's many times where I tell myself, I'm like, man, I could sell all this gear and literally just retire. I could sell it all, put it in the bank, take off, go to Greece or something, live the rest of my life happy at 40. I'm going to be 46 at 46 years old, live my life happy. And that's it. It's over. But at the same time, because it's my company, because I started, because it's taken off so much, and because just before the pandemic, we were on the verge of a major, major worldwide television deal that would have been, that was paying, and it would have been really good. I told myself, I'm like, you can't leave this unfinished. So hopefully, within a month or two, like you said, we're back to normal. I know a lot of events are being booked for April. So, and I just got called and asked if I wanted to keep my March 12th Antellas date. So I have a feeling we'll be back by March.
No, that's cool. That's a live event you're talking about, right?
Yeah, live events, yeah.
Okay, and you say you have 3 TV shows?
Yeah, we have a new one that's coming out on Fight Network that we're shooting right now. It's called Hardcore History, which is basically a watch along. Wrestlers who were in a match will watch this old match they had together and talk. It's like a split screen, kind of like what we're doing now, picture in picture, and they'll talk about the match as it happens. And people really get a kick out of that. I actually made it originally for YouTube myself at the beginning of the pandemic because we were looking for content. So I did it in our gym, and I had a tablet on a little cheap Amazon tripod showing them the match at the bottom. And then I would just go in Premiere and split screen it and, get the timing right and everything. And I took it about a month ago. I took that episode, one of the first episodes, I re-edited it and, all in house. And I sent it to Fight Network, which hosts our other TV show, which is live pro wrestling, IWS Bloodstream. And I said, hey, I've got this show. I want to reshoot it similar to this. And they were like, yeah, well, we're in. And we had our French television show. That's our third TV show, which is on pause. We don't know if it's going to come back because Bell Media got hit hard by the pandemic. So we were on RDS for about 5 years. They gave us our start in TV. Ironically, they didn't want to train me to be a pro wrestler because I was English, but I was the only promoter and pro wrestler who got the French TV deal in the history of wrestling. So, it's a little victory for me. But we have that show. Hopefully it comes back. We have another one I can't talk about because of an NDA, but there was one major one that was signed before the pandemic. Then it's a television network, but it's their digital platform, which is even bigger than the actual network. Uh, they only wanted recent stuff, so it couldn't happen during the pandemic. Then when we ended and started having shows again in December, before all this shit happened again, they re-signed us to do it again on their digital platform, which was even bigger than the original deal. And it's set in stone, but everything got shut down. And we're hoping it's still happening. It seems like it's still happening, but if that happens, that's going to be like the game changer. So
Wow.
that's what we're all waiting for.
I'd like you to tell me a bit about your beginnings. I mean, I've read some stuff. While you were wrestling, you had you had this character, right? You had the
Yeah, I had the original promo was the funniest promo. We didn't know anything at the time. We just wanted to be wrestlers, and we felt spited when we were young because these guys were telling us, "No, you can't do this. You're not good enough. We don't want to train you." And we were like, like fuck them. Who are they to say what we can and can't do? So when we started our own company, we had these little characters. And my character was PCB Crazy Manny. I was like the homeless junkie that you see in a Montreal alley. It was actually, you probably know this guy. I'm sure you know him. He's a technician. He's been working for years. The character was based off him. I don't know if you remember Ben Bass.
yeah.
He was, yeah, Ben. It was based off him because I knew him, and and I remember he used to show, like, when we would have shows, we'd show up at the venue and he'd be sleeping in the alley from partying the night before, and he'd be sleeping behind the venue with his bag, his tool bag, and everything. So like the character was based on him. It was kind of like a joke, but people loved it. So I just started going with it, and it just grew and grew and grew and grew. And I still wrestle. I haven't wrestled since the pandemic. I didn't wrestle at any of the 4 shows that we had when we came back, just because I wanted to make sure I remembered how to put on a live show. I didn't want to have to worry about a match. And I probably, if our March 12th event does happen, I'll probably have my last match if we're allowed to have a full capacity show. Because now it's when you get to that level where you're shooting, you're producing a live show at MTELUS with all the bells and whistles, and at the same time you have a separate regie where you're multicam live switching this for television as well as the audio. There's a lot at play. You got 2 teams of techs that you're working with, and there's a lot at play, and it's hard to plan a match and think about a match, especially when we do the very hardcore matches. It's hard to have that on your mind and do your job as the promoter of the event. So and if something goes wrong and you're backstage, you can't sit backstage with a headset on while trying to plan a match. It's just impossible. You have to be at the regie. So I have someone who helps me, who does it, and we take turns. But like this March, if March happens at full capacity, it'll be the last one for me in the ring, and then I'll just focus on the live promoting, because we're trying to move to live television. So we were literally about to do that in January. We were supposed to run the first live TV test, like on TV, of one of our shows. So we bought a new encoder with that does SRT, and I don't know if you're familiar with SRT. It's it used to be RTMP to do television.
Yeah.
You send it through the web. Now they have SRT, which compresses it even more, so you don't need that big a connection. So we bought a $5,000 encoder, which we tested in December. It worked, and we got ready to make our money back in January, but the show got postponed. So hopefully we'll see. Right now I have so many postponed shows. I don't even.
Yeah, and you plan to do one last match to fight.
I'd like to do one last match in the ring. I feel like before the pandemic, the show before the pandemic, I was in the ring. I had a match. It was amazing, and it was really good. But it didn't make sense letting it go there. Like if I want to I want to go all out. And I just want to say goodbye to the fans and thank them. I've been doing this for 23 years, so I'm like, yeah, I owe it to them. I owe it to myself. I owe myself that moment too, to be able to stand in front of. And I don't want it to be in a small venue where I was wrestling with 300-400 people. I want it to be in front of 2,000 people at MTELUS, And I told myself, if I ever do come back, it'll be for one match at the Bell Center. That's my.
Why not?
Yeah, that's it.
Well, which brings on this question. 23 years of wrestling. You're 47, you say?
46. I'm going to be 46 tomorrow.
46. Okay. How's your physical condition? I mean,
I'm actually in the best shape of my life right now. It's I diet, I train. I mean, we own a gym, so I train. I train every day, even with the pandemic. I have the most expensive gym membership known to man right now because I'm the only person that's allowed in the building.
yeah.
So, I work like at my day job. I walk the equivalent of 8 miles a day. So, because I'm in a warehouse, so it keeps me fit. And like injury wise, wrestling is an illusion. Like I do some very extreme, crazy stuff in the ring. But the thing is, I'm kind of like a stunt man. I know how to properly do it
Mm.
to take the least risk, and I also know, like what a lot of people don't notice is I'm like a band that's on tour. I'm putting on every time I do a match, even though it looks different, it's the same match.
Mm.
I'm literally doing that. I've been doing the same thing for 20. I change this around, I do that. But everybody thinks, oh my God, he killed it. I couldn't believe the stuff he did. But if you really sit down and watch it, and you watch the ones in the back, okay, he did every move. He did that. Like it's all the same. So it's an art form. It's like being a band, being on tour. It's like it's like programming a lighting board.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have different chases, but all the cues are the same. So
Mm.
it's a crazy world.
Well, I remember being on an event once where you had a ring, and I think I was there.
Having
I set up a couple lights or something, and I remember watching the guys literally rehearse
Yeah,
because I think it's like a choreography, right?
yeah, that's it. Everything is planned ahead of time. I mean, it's a hard sport on your body. The falls are real. A lot of the hits are real, but everything is predetermined. And it's it's like theater almost. You're in there and you're acting, but it's very very physical. So it's it's almost harder than like MMA. Like MMA, the training is much much harder, and of course the injuries are there's a big risk to injuries. But like pro wrestling is, you take the beating you take in MMA, but you're not trying to beat the guy up. You're trying to remember what comes next.
Hmm.
So that's and you're trying to stay on the same rhythm as the guy you're facing. It's like you got to develop a rhythm in there. So it's a pretty hard business to learn. But yeah, it is what it is. It's a lot of people ask me about it. Sometimes I just forget how unique it is to people because I've been doing it for so long. To me, it's like a real world. So it's when we have music festivals and we bring people like guests, like sponsors, like the Heavy Montreal and stuff like that, and they come in the back and they to Artists World or the VIP sections and everything like that. We're so used to it. That's everyday life for us. Whereas other people, they're like, oh my God, this is so insane. This is this. So it's kind of the same thing. Like with wrestling, it's a unique thing to people. But for me, it's like it's been my job my whole life. So it's I say stuff that other people are like, well, how have you not gotten hurt? It's my job not to get hurt. I tell people, it really really is. So yeah, it's the way it's been. It's the way it's always been.
What you were saying before, I mean, it's hard for you to be backstage on the ring and at the regie at the same time. And now, so you're aiming going forward to be full time at the regie.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to be at the regie. I want to supervise because I mean, it is a live event, and like currently the tech team that we use at MTELUS, the guys that are there, the in-house team, are the best guys I've ever used in 22 years. Like they really know their shit. They're really really good. So I'm happy with them. And our television team has been with us since they were students going to school to learn how to operate this stuff. You know, so I don't have to worry about them. But the thing is it is a live event and it is pro wrestling. It's a sport that's pretty dangerous. So things change, things do go wrong, and they need someone there to make a decision or to change something, or if there's a fuck up, you know, and it's much easier than screaming from a clear comm backstage. You know, plus we it's easier being there because we use like house techs have their clear comms, they have their wired clear comms, whereas our television crew have 3 cameramen on 3 different cameras. Their DT who runs around if there's a problem and fixes it, and the DOP who's switching live, they're on wireless clear comms, which I bought. So it's like I would need 2 sets of clear comms just to communicate with people. So it's just much better being there. I could tell somebody something literally, and they will send the message out.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been to that before. Well, actually, even as a light operator, I've had 2 clear comms on my head many times, because you want to hear the camera crew and you want to hear the stage manager, and it's a bit complicated to be able to talk to everybody that I understand.
Yeah. It's very, very difficult. And, as a lighting operator, of course, that, sometimes what the stage manager wants the people in the crowd to see and what the cameramen want to see on their cameras are 2 very different things. So it becomes it becomes quite a pain in the ass. So.
Yeah, it is. It is, believe me, especially for TV shows it's very difficult because you're most of the time when cameras are there, you're not doing a show for the crowd anymore. If you're doing it in a studio and it's a small crowd, not the end of the world. But if you're doing it on a live event where there's like thousands of people that get paid to come and see the show, and you have to compromise the effect and the wowness of the show because you need key lighting and you need this and that, and you can't saturate the reds and whatever. It's a tough decision at some point.
And we're fortunate because, once the matches happen, we're not using any effects lighting. We're lighting the ring.
Yeah.
And what the people want to see is what the camera wants to see. So that's good. But sometimes, it takes one fuck up, one guy to not know what he's doing or not notice something, and then you've got problems, And also, a lot of times I like to stick with the same venues because I know what they have in house. But a lot of times, we ran an event, a TV taping. It was an event at a venue, and it was a TV taping, and they didn't use Par 64s anymore. They used LEDs, but they used old shitty LEDs, which flicker on camera. So and they're like, "Well, switch your camera to PAL." I'm like, "That's not the solution," I'm like. That's not the solution. Get real equipment, or it's really ridiculous that a place like MTELUS, which is where we have our best lit shows, and we're still using Par 64. It's crazy, and hopefully one day there's stuff that can duplicate that.
Well, there is.
Yeah,
there is,
but it's pricey though.
It is. Yeah, exactly. It is. We do have the technology now to, I say to, not exactly copy, but we can regenerate the quality of light, the warmness, the even the when you turn it on, turn it off, those delays you have, the red shift when you're dimming down, all that stuff. That's all accessible. We do have the technology. There's still a few things that remain LED. With LED, you don't have those hot spots. You don't have those beam shapes and all that. You can fake it up to a certain point, but at this level, you ask yourself, can we just learn to work with this new technology, and not have to try always and go back to our old ways, as long as the quality of light is there.
Yeah, that's it. I saw it was actually hilarious. When I saw Archie at LSM, we were doing a television taping last September. So not the September that passed, the September just before. I had gotten permission from Santé Publique to put my guys into pods of 4 and have them do a television taping without a crowd. So we had a live event without a crowd, and we shot for 2 days. We shot 4 months worth of television. So when I went to make a layout with Archie at LSM, he was laughing when I got to his office, and he's like, "I have to show you something in the back." And he's like, "What?" I'm like, I'm like, he's like, you're gonna laugh. I'm like, oh. So I go to the back, and there's literally a trade show going on just for us of all the reps from the different lighting companies. Most of it was Chauvet because there's no gigs going on. So I was the only guy having an event. So all these guys are there, and I'm looking at them, and Archie's laughing because I worked at Jam Industries when I was a kid. So all the reps from Ericsson Pro are there, and Daryl is there, and they're like, let me show you our new LED strobe light, and let me show you our new moving head, and you're shooting television now. Congratulations! And I'm laughing. I'm like, man, I saw you guys at a trade show 2 years ago, and you wouldn't even look at me. And now, I'm like, look at how the world is just so amusing. And Archie's in the back laughing his fucking head off, because I've known him for 20 years, but I mean, that's that's the business we're in now. The business took a beating, and it's a shame that we were so close with LED, like to make it like the industry standard for everything. It moved into our moving heads and everything like that. And then for the last 2 fucking years, it's kind of like they stopped focusing on improving the LED beams, and they started focusing more on making the moving heads quieter because of television. And I'm like, now this is going to end, and no one's going to care about having quiet moving heads. It's just a shame, but like I said, that's the world we're in. You gotta adapt and make money.
Yeah, exactly. There's a whole bunch of whirl around that's been happening. I mean, companies have been trying to adapt and trying to put out product that'll sell now, since there's no big shows going on. So all this huge stuff that was selling like crazy because those fancy designers want the latest technology and they want the latest effect. So they were putting out these fantastic fixtures that can do wonders, and all of a sudden nobody's buying those anymore. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's at the very beginning of the pandemic. One of the places where we have our shows is Unity, the club in the village. We turned it into a live show, so it's a nightclub, but it's also a live show bar. I know the owner very well, so we did a lot of tech work there. And right when the pandemic hit, I mean, everybody was getting rid of gear. We got this massive bargain on 100 Chauvet legends that were coming back from the Mary May tour. So in this small nightclub where I usually have 300 people at our shows, 300 to 400 people, we installed 100 Chauvet legends. So you can only imagine how insane it was, like insane. And the poor owner, and it was turning into a live event bar. So he bought 2 Midas M32s, one for monitors, one for, and I mean, this poor guy got to open for a month. He got to open like a month and a half with it. People were allowed to dance for a month and a half in the last 2 years. And I'm just looking, and I'm like, this multi-million-dollar investment that's just up in smoke again,
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand. Like you said, they're trying to adapt and everything like that to make money and everything. But man, it's a shame because we're missing out on so much. I hope it's over. It'll be. I mean, the one good thing is, if this ends in March, once festival season hits, everybody's going to have an amazing time. They're going to have a really, really, really good time. Especially if they remove, like, I don't know if you went to Oshiega or Il Sonic last summer.
No,
But
not. I didn't go anywhere last summer actually.
I worked both events, so I was able to see the shows, and ironically, so like yeah, I worked at Oshiega and Il Sonic. It was kind of ironic because I was allowed on site. I could tech. I could be anywhere on site as a worker without being vaccinated. I am vaccinated, but just the rules, like not being vaccinated yet. If I wanted to watch the concert, be there as a fan, and stand next to myself, I needed to be like, it was just, the rules were just ridiculous. And the way it was all set up, it set up these pens. So basically they were just sections of like 200 people, and then a section that's empty that holds 200 people. And it literally looked like a farm, like a cattle ranch. So I'm hoping that all ends. Omicron is not as serious as people thought it was. I think a lot of people made a lot of money on this. Now they're realizing, it's time to, before we end up with a bankrupted society, it's time to open back up. So, especially right now when there's no options for help. At least at the beginning there was options for help. Now there's nothing, if you're a business owner. So,
Well,
So
that's a big concern of mine because they shut everything down. But all those people that were, that were getting help, what are they doing now? What's going on? I mean, all my friends that are lucky enough to work in the States, they say they're working like crazy because things, it's business as usual in the States.
yeah, half my talent is working in the States. They're all down there, and there is no help. It's really it's a sad thing. At the beginning there was plans in place, but now it's kind of like because the plans were federal, the rest of Canada is basically open. Only Quebec is closed, and so like the federal government, like Quebec, they just closed us down with no plan in place. Right before, like a lot of places, right before New Year's, they lost a lot of money that they invested, on New Year's suppers, and I mean, it there there's zero plan in place. There's zero plan in place. Nobody's getting any money, and you know, maybe you would think that the government would understand certain things, but I mean, just in terms of a venue, all the draft beer, all everything you supply your place with because you have concerts coming, which is how you earn your income. It's MTELUS or Club Soda or Olympia doesn't survive on the $1,500 they charge you for rent. They survive on their beer sales and their liquor sales, and all that stuff goes bad. You can't just leave it sitting in a building for months and months. It goes bad. It doesn't last. Then you got your electricity bills for these massive buildings. You need staff there sometimes to keep an eye on the place. You need security because you have millions of dollars worth of equipment. You need to heat it because you can't let your gear free. And it's like, these poor people are stuck there and they're letting their bills pile up. And it's going to take them a year to get out of the hole. And it's a real shame because there's no support, there's no help, and just like you said, techs. All the best techs are in the States. They're working in the States nonstop. Guys that work here at venues here that are open are getting paid double to fly and getting flown in to Dallas, to here, to there, to work because there's so much going on now that the U.S. Open. They need staff. It's incredible.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's going to be a big pain. I mean, even when things start to open up again, that's going to be a big pain because there's going to be a huge staff problem. Like the first time when the restaurants reopened, we were all very anxious to go back to the restaurant, and I was told, people I was going to the restaurant with, I was told them we're going to have to be patient because a lot of restaurants have new staff, and a lot of them don't necessarily have all the stuff they had before. I mean, it's all it's like everybody's has a new restaurant now. It's like they're starting over. So
A lot of people don't understand. Like, it's gotten very expensive to eat out now, and I tell everyone all the time that, like, for example, Uber Eats. Try not to use it because they are ripping off restaurants. They're making a fortune. They're just like Amazon. They're profiting off this pandemic. It's unreal. Either go pick it up or if they have delivery, you order from the delivery. So at least the restaurant makes all the money. And don't complain because, yeah, prices have gone up, but prices have gone up everywhere. And I mean, it's the same with groceries. It's the same with, the cost of living has gone up, and it's only going to get worse once this is over, because once this is over, all the money the federal and provincial government has shelled out, they're going to want it back, and we're going to be the ones paying for it. We're going to be paying for this for years. Our kids are going to be paying for this, so it's a real shame, And the worst is, like, today, Boris Johnson, the UK was one of the worst COVID spots in the world, and they removed all the restrictions today, and for some reason, I don't know, we're the strictest COVID rules in the world, and apparently we're the worst. So I don't get it. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, it's a whole other conversation that we could go on forever. Yeah, so I'm out of questions, man. I mean,
good. I'm hungry, so it's perfect.
Timing is great, right?
Yeah, good 45 minutes. It's perfect. So I had fun, and I'd love to do this again once shows are back. You know, when we're both really really busy and we're both really really happy. You know,
Yep.
and perfect. Thanks, Claude. Take
Thank
care. Eh?
you so much. It's been a pleasure, and we'll talk soon, Manny.
Talk soon. Thank you very much.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye. The Backstage Cowboys podcast is brought to you by AVL Media Group and Avolites, who make the best lighting consoles in the world. If you live in Canada, you now have access to the Avolites Academy online learning platform. The cost is $229, and that includes an editor Avo key delivered directly to your door. Head on over to BackstageCowboys.com and click on the Avolites Academy logo to get all the details.